Woof, 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 woof. Big dog.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coffee Hour. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host, as always. Thanks for joining me here on a Wednesday morning. If you're on the East Coast, it's 8 a.m. If you're out on the West Coast, I guess, what is it, 5 a.m. this time? So, anyway, thanks for joining me, taking the time out of your day to talk a little electrical today. And of course, I'll answer any questions you may have. If you have a question, feel free to place it in the comments. I will do my best to try to answer it. You hear any rumors around the mill? I'll be more than happy to try to answer those questions for you here on the episode. If I don't know, then you can always go to paulabernathy.com and ask your question. It's a free service where I answer questions for people on all types of topics of the National Electrical Code. And usually I give a pretty quick response. So, but anyway, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about probably one of the most requested things that I get all the time is they say, Paul, I understand for electrical exams, I need to understand how to do the standard method. But I'd really like you to go over how we do the optional method again, because again, it does seem pretty simple. And we'll take a peek maybe into 2026 a little bit as well today, but we're really going to focus on the latest adopted edition, which when we say adopted means that most jurisdictions are probably on it by now, if not close to adopting it. And that is the 2023 National Electrical Code. Also, we're going to break the rules. We're going to be using links. So if NFPA doesn't like it, you know who to sue, this guy. So feel free to come after me if you wish. That's fine. I'll lawyer up too. So no big deal. But as an educator and a person that serves on code making panels and a person that personally pays for his link, and as a person that helps to contribute to the development of the National Electrical Code, I encourage you, Mr. Pauly, to lawyer up if you'd like. That's fine. All right. So that's what we'll be talking about on today's episode. We're going to be looking at the optional method and talking about the steps in that. Of course, if you have any questions along that way, please feel free to ask. And I'm more than happy to elaborate on any topic or anything that's a little confusing for you. All right. Okay. So before we get into that, I do want to make a couple announcements so people are aware. Obviously, you've heard the buzz about our certified thermal electrician program. If you didn't catch last week's show, it's a thermal imaging program that's certifying electricians to be electrical thermographers. And its thermography is not new. It's been around for quite a while. It's been used. Now, the technology has become quite advanced today. But at the onslaught when it came on, it wasn't that great. The pixels weren't that well. But when it came to electrical, it wasn't that difficult because we can look at significant marks within the thermal span of whether something is a problem or not, or whether it's just heat dissipation or whatnot. So, but it's come a long way. The thermal imaging cameras that we use today have come a long way. So, encourage you, if you want to add thermal imaging into your program or you want to know how to add it, check out the course. The course is live. People can purchase the courses and start your studying now. But the official website, which is thermalelectrician.com, is still in the development. So you'll see that change over the next month because we're tweaking a lot of things. But at the end of the day, the course is still available. Volume up. What is that again? I've got the volume as high as I can get it, bro. I can't get it any higher. Dude, I literally can't get the volume any higher. I don't know what to do. I've got it maxed out, bro. I can't get I literally can't make the volume any higher. Let me try it again. You're killing me. All right. How's that? Is that better? All right. Appreciate it. Where was I? I got, I don't know. I got distracted from something here. Okay. All right. Anyway, appreciate it. Had to get that volume up there because I'm whispering. But anyway, so if you're interested in the thermal course, please check it out. It is it's a great course when it comes to learning, and it differs from normal thermography because normal thermography courses are teaching things like building envelope and all this other stuff that we have no interest in. We're here to focus on electricians and focus on teaching electricians what they need to know about thermography when it comes to electrical so that you don't cry wolf or cause a problem when there is no problem. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're talking about, right? Okay. Now it's better. All right. But anyway, also, folks, if you have any questions, let's see. There you go. I'm turning down my TV. Yeah. I like messing with you folks. There you go. Red Dog was the one that he found it. Oh, by the way, we're also streaming over on TikTok behind the scenes. If you want to see behind the scenes, feel free to do that. Good news, I had a checkup yesterday, doctor's appointment, and I'm still losing weight. That's good. Diabetes is all in check. Everything looks good. Blood work is great. So you're gonna have me around maybe for a little longer. For those haters out there who say we had enough of Paul, well, we're gonna be. I'm still gonna be around for hopefully for a little while longer. So anyway, all right. So also, if you haven't checked out Fast Tracks 2, be sure to check it out. Um, the last two episodes of the Article 680 with me and Vince actually is going to go up this week. So once that goes up, the entire series will be up there and it's all done. And so there you go. So it'll all be done. There you go. Hey, you can hear me this morning. There you go. Thank Red Dog.
Woo, 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 woo. Big
He
dog.
said, turn that volume up, bro. Okay. We want to be able to hear you. All right. So anyway, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at it. So again, as always, folks, if you have your questions, do me a favor. Just you can put them in the chat. I will answer them. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to dig into them. Now, when it comes to the 2023, we'll talk of it as normal, and we may at the end go look and see maybe what's changed in the 2026 version. But um, other than that, it's pretty straightforward. The optional method is what you're going to use out in the field, pretty much you know, every day. So I get that question from folks a lot. They go, if I'm out in the field and I'm working, and which one am I going to use? Well, you're obviously going to use the optional method, especially for single family dwellings. There's no real need to use the standard method for normal sizing. Now, you all know, those that have been around a while know that you're going to need to use the standard method in order to size the neutral conductor. However, most people, when they size the ungrounded hot conductors and then they choose an SE cable, then they really don't do any neutral sizing at that point in a dwelling. I mean, I'm just being honest with you, because typically the manufacturers of cable can't produce the grounded conductor more than two sizes smaller than the ungrounded conductor. Okay. Now, if you're putting in raceways and you're pulling your own, that's one thing. But if you're going to use SC cable, service entrance U, or R, depending on now what you're doing, then typically if it was 4/0 copper, excuse me, 4/0 aluminum, then the smallest neutral in that assembly is going to be a 2/0 aluminum for the neutral. So most people today aren't doing any of the math, because once they size it, even when doing the optional method, once they size the hot conductors, you really, in a dwelling, there's really no need. The neutral loads are, again, uh, not going to be as nearly a big a deal as it would be if you're doing something in commercial or industrial, whereas you could have harmonics and you have three phase and all this kind of stuff. In single phase dwelling applications, I tell people, let's keep life simple. Now, for an exam, you need to know how to calculate it, right? because you could have that exam type question. Of course, our Fast Tracks program teaches you how to do that, and it tests you how to do that. But at the end of the day, it's really in today's episode, we're going to be talking about real world in the field, how you would do. Now, my brother would go, that looks like a 200 amp. That looks like a 400 amp. You know, right? You just make that guess. But, I always try to tell him, got to do the calcs. What's up, everybody? Do some, shout outs again. Here, we're going to shout out to everybody because I do appreciate you coming. And that's what it's all about, is for those that join. I have gotten a lot of emails lately to people like, dude, we miss it every day. And I get it, kind of get your day going. But remember now, you can still send in topics for the show. All you got to do is just go to paulabernathy.com or on our fasttracksystem.com website. You can click on the Let's Ask Paul button and you can send something in that way. So if you got a topic you want me to talk about on the show, let's do it. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Let's get to some shout outs really quickly, and then we'll do some shout outs and get going. Let's see if I can get back to the top here. What's up, Marlon? Glad to have you here. Yeah, it is tough. Life goes on. It's tough to catch us each week, but it's hopefully you catch the replay, because sometimes we do replay them through the week. What's up? Good morning, Corbin. Glad to have you here, my friend. Good morning. Good morning. Got your pint of coffee. Glad to have you here, my friend. Big Dog. Buenos dias, my friend. Glad to have you here as always. Let's see, what do we got here? We got Jonathan there. Good morning. Welcome, Jonathan. Glad to have you here. Keith, fellow code panel member there. Welcome, Keith. Glad to have you here. Rob, good morning. Glad to have you here, my friend. What do we got here? Dave, good morning, my friend. Glad to have you here. All is well. All is well. Let's see here. What else do we got here? Santana's in the house. Santana, appreciate you. Thanks for joining. What do we got? Manny. Manny's shouting out to all the code nerds over on Facebook. Welcome, Manny. Glad to have you here. Alex. Met Alex at the recent Nika event. Awesome guy. Glad to have you. Glad to have you here. Let's see. What do we got? Red Dog, got that volume up for you. So there you go. We got it all hooked away. Skiato, ski diddly do. Glad to have you here. Oh, by the way, for those that did get, we have very limited right now. Is I did have some thermal cameras. Right, I just want to let you know, since our course went from a standard non-certification course to a certification course, means we added more content. We've added a qualifying process, some field evaluation stuff, and the final exam, and all this other stuff that we added. The price did increase for our course because now it is a certified course, but we're still doing, believe it or not, we're still doing the 50% off. If you get one of these and you let me know in the comments when you order, you'll get 50. That's like a $300 and some savings. Okay. People have been taking advantage of that. We only have a few of these left. When they're gone, we're not going to offer the camera anymore. So if you want to pick one up and save $300 on the course, that's the time. Okay. So pick up a camera. That it only works if you get a camera. And when you check out in the comments, you'll put that you ordered a camera, you want the 50% off coupon. Then we'll send it to you. Okay. And then you can purchase the course and use the coupon. Okay. This course has gone to $600 and some. Regularly, it was $1,400 with all the stuff that we added, but it's $600 some bucks. You get 50% off that, but only if you get a camera. Other than that, you pay full price. Use whatever camera you want, but there you go. Just wanted to mention that. Jeff reminded me to mention that. That's a huge, huge discount off the course, but that's because it's a brand new course. And that's what we want to offer, that special to everybody. Let's see here. All right. So what do we say? We got you, Skiddly Doo. We got you on there. Paul. What is up, Paul? Glad to have you here joining us. Josh, I see you throwing that hashtag win in the house. Josh is also very active over on our message portal. So check that out as well. Go to our website. and you'll actually see you can click over to the message. I encourage all of you to open an account over on fasttracksystem.com/portal, but you can get it from the website. Check it out. What's up, Tara? You can hear me this morning. That's what I'm talking about. What's up? We have a CMECP in the house. What's up, Todd? Glad to have you here, my friend, from down in Florida. We got Terrence in the house from up in DC, Maryland, Virginia, our contractor up the way. Glad to have you here. Leo's in the house. Glad to have you, Leo. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Yeah, Leo says he misses watching me every morning. I don't get boring for people. I know I get boring for people. I have to get boring. What's up, Peter? Glad to have you here, my friend. Welcome back. All right. So again, Marlon's going to show us how to do it. Again, the giveaway is going to be at the end of the year. We're adding to the list. Quarter 3 got rolled into quarter 4, give you more options, more chances to win. It's still #win. So get in on the spin, do #win. Okay. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. That type of thing. Next year, we will be giving away some courses for the thermal electrician. Okay. We probably will not be giving away any cameras because I don't think that we'll have any left by then. I've only got a few of these left. Okay. And it's below MSRP. So if you want that and get that discount on that, this is the time to act. Let's call that my Christmas sale or Thanksgiving sale. We'll say that. Once they're gone, I'm probably not going to be working anymore with that vendor to get those cameras, even though that's the camera we like. Probably not, but it depends. We got some stuff in the works, but we don't know how that's going to work out or not. We're trying to establish a partnership with a major supplier of thermal cameras that we're reviewing. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's go on and get into. Thank all y'all for joining us. Let's get into the day's lesson here. All right. So what we're going to be talking about today is the optional method. And again, as always, you have any questions, put them in the comments. But I'm talking practical today for the everyday electrician. Obviously, let me start out by saying this. The process in the field, for folks that get this confused, all right, there's a process in the field. So when I go to do a load calculation for a dwelling, I'm not going to be using the standard method. I'm just not. I'm going to be using the optional method. Okay. And Article 220 is going to permit me to use what we call the regular, or we say standard method, but the regular method, which means that I'm going to take each thing piecemeal. Okay. And that's where we do the VA per square foot and all that kind of stuff, which we're still going to do in the optional method, but it's a little more detailed. Okay. And it typically results in a larger service. Now, once you start getting into commercial and other things, then it changes a little bit. Multifamily dwellings, it can possibly change a little bit. So you do want to compare. But we're not talking exam today. We're talking, the vast majority of you in here have already got your license. Okay. You've already got your license through our program or some other programs, maybe Mike Holtz or somebody else's. So we're really talking today field, what we do in the field. So for me, the first thing I do, I get to a project or I get the drawings, is I have a discussion with the developer as well as the owner. And I have to do a walkthrough. And I do a walkthrough and I say, okay, are we laying this out to specifications? It means 6 foot, 12 foot, 2 foot, 4 foot on counters. What special do you want? What are we adding? And I'll tell you, my brother is notorious. I talk to him all the time, and I've actually go out and help him on some projects now. I don't really videotape them, but some people have been asking me to videotape them. But we go out, and when I'm out there, okay, and I actually have a new camera coming that would allow me to videotape easily in the field. So look, we'll try to get some of that footage because I know y'all say I don't work with the tools anymore. But I feel great. I've lost a ton of weight. In the last rough-in that we did together, man, I felt like I was back in my 20s, pulling cable and terminating and making up boxes. And, I feel like I'm as sharp as ever when it comes to electrical. So I have so much more energy for some reason. I can't explain what it is. I can only say that it's probably due to the diabetes now being under control. My A1C is now below 7. Um, so I'm eating better, taking care of my wife. Y'all know the story there. So I don't know. Life's good. I can't complain. Anyway, where was I do have ADHD. I still can't get rid of that. So I go and I talk to the owner. I say, look, are we doing spec? Because if I'm pricing something, I usually use software, but my brother doesn't. He kind of goes by square footage because he's done enough of them. He kind of knows. So everybody's a little different. Uh, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure that I'm laying it out so I kind of know what all's going on. But the real reason is I want to know what's going on in the dwelling, right? I want to know, is there any special appliances that I got to worry about? What's the size of the range? Is it just a standard range? Or you give me some fancy range, or is it just gas, right? Is it you're going to do gas, but you're also putting in the receptacle for the range? Are we, what are we doing? So I will kind of go through and I will ask them and the builder to get me my equipment layout. Now that's the toughest thing because it seems like people don't know what kind of air handler they're getting or what kind of air conditioner they're getting or what kind of heat they're getting. Nobody seems to know these things right up front, but you've got to ask for it. Okay. Now, assuming that I get everything that I need to know and I start looking at it and say, okay, well, I'm going to do 3 small appliance branch circuits, right? Or I'm going to do kind of get an idea of what my layout's going to be, right? It's so much easier. If I'm doing just a spec house, that's one thing, okay? Simple spec. But if it's a custom home, I need to know. I need to know all the little things. So when I go in there, I've got my tablet. I'm making notes on the tablet. For those that don't know now, I have a tablet with a pen and I write these notes. And I'm trying to gather as much information as I can to do this load calculation. Okay. I need to know from the drawings what's the square foot of the building. I need to know the dimensions of the building. I need to know all those things so that I can do a proper load calculation. Okay. Um, so, assuming we got all that information together in our pseudo house, and we're going to use a house that we've used for consistency a lot, we're going to kind of walk through the process and assume that we've uh, pulled all this information up. Okay. That's what we're going to do today. Okay. All right. So where do we begin? Well, they give you a set of drawings. You're looking at it. You hope you have a set of drawings. A lot of the homes that I did were spec homes. To be honest with you, I had done so many of them that that I knew that it was a 200 amp service. I could just say 200 amp service. But today we're going to be doing a calculation based on the information that's provided for us based on the dimensions and the layout. What's up, Craig? Craig, I see you, Bill. I met Bill at Nika as well as the CMECP. Had his daughter with him. Great people. All right, so that's why I also love going to those events because I love meeting people. Oh, speaking of events, I will be in Florida. Already date is already set in I think it's July or June. I can't remember. It's on the portal. If you go look at the portal over on fasttracksystem.com/portal, you'll see the date and event. But I'm going to be doing a presentation on the thermal electrician, that type of thing. All right, so let's look at what our dwelling is. So we've done our little homework, right? It's a dwelling unit. It's going to be the outside dimensions is 35 by 55. That's what we need. We have a porch on the front. Okay. Now that's included in this 35 by 55, by the way. So they just gave me the full footprint. Okay. We determined that there's going to be a minimum of 4 small appliance branch circuits in this dwelling. It's going to be 2 laundry circuits. Yours may only have 1, but we're gonna say this one has 2. And y'all seen this before, so this should not be any brain surgery for you. Water heater is 4,500 watts or 4.5 kW, 240. Dishwashers 10 amps at 120, 240. All right, so we're gonna have to do some math here to get us our VA. We have an in-sink waste disposer. That's a 0.5 horsepower, 115 volts. Let's see who all on here can start doing all this math ahead of time and posting it in the comments and save us time. Do y'all know how to convert all these things? So let's see who does. Let's see who out there is going to be our converter today. And you have the in-sink waste disposer. This is a half horsepower, 115 volts. Now, by the way, here's the first thing I'll tell people they ask all the time. Is it 115 or do we use 120? You use what they give you. Okay, so for this place on a in-sink waste disposer, because it's a motor and we're going to be looking at horsepower, so we'll be looking at 430. And more appropriately to understand it, we'll be looking in the back at the tables, 430.248, 249, all those kind of things. That we're going to use 115, one, because that's what we have. Okay. Let me be a realist for you for a second. In the real world, it's not going to matter. Yes, it might change the amps a few here or there, but if you're out in the real world, we're not talking exam today. You're in the real world. I'm a realist. I'm going to say, you're probably going to go 120. However, when you go to 430 and you look at the tables, you're not going to see a 120, although it's referenced in the guide of the table, which reminds you that, maybe 120 nominal, but really you're going to use the value from the 115. That's how you use the tables in 430, right? So we just give that to you here, okay, to make life simple, okay? So we're telling you half horsepower. So that way, when you go to the tables, it's simple, okay? But in the real world, you're still going to do that because when you go to 430 to find out what it is, what the amps are for that half horsepower, it's going to be under the 115 column. So that's why we do it here. So just it simplifies it, keeps it from being confusing for many people. Okay. All right. A trash compactor. Do they even make those today anymore? Anyway, 7.5 amps at 120 volts. Okay, so that is an appliance. Okay, so got to do some conversion there to get the VA. We have 3 attic fans at 4.2 amps each. So they're in the attic. Okay, they're going to be pulling out the hot air, that type of thing in the attic, or circulating the air. So we just added them all together for you. So that's 12.6 amps. So that's 4.2 times 3 because there's 3 of them. Makes sense? But one important thing is to remember they're each separate. Okay. So when we go to add up appliances and look at stuff, just remember that on the optional method, it's okay to add them all up. If you were doing the standard method and we were applying the rules on the standard method, that, you know what, each one of these count as a fastened in place appliance. Okay. And oh, by the way, yes, we are going to go over the standard method as well. So don't worry, that's in an upcoming coffee hour if you're interested in that. But today I wanted to do the realists. In other words, what you're probably going to really do in real life. On an exam, you got to know how to do the standard method. In real life, you're going to use the option. You know you are. All right. So where are we at here? Okay. So we have a clothes dryer, 5.5 kW. Okay. So we have that. We already know that's 5,500 watts. Counter-mounted cooking unit. We have a cooktop at 7 kW, 240 volts. We have a wall-mounted oven, 6 kW, 240 volts. We have electric heat, 3 banks. So it's a heating package, let's say. And so that is going to be 15 kW total. So there's 3 banks of 5 kW heat strips in this unit. Okay, makes sense. And then we have an air handler, which is 3.2 amperes, which is also going to blow this heat around, by the way. Okay, we have the air handler here in amps, so we're going to have to do a little bit of conversion here to get some VA. We have an air conditioning compressor that's 16.6 amps at 230. So again, we don't have to go look up anything in the back for horsepower or whatever. It gives us the amps. That's easy, right? All right. And condensing fan motor is 2 amperes. Okay. So that's, dang it. There you go, right there. Okay. Now, real quick, let me give you a little tip here. In the real world, you're probably just going to take the values that you're going to calculate from a nameplate. Or on an exam, they're probably not going to break it down like this. Okay, for those that are taking an exam. They're probably just going to give you flat out, this is what the heat is, and this is what the air conditioning is. Flat out. Okay. When they do that, give you the heat flat out and the AC flat out, then you really need to remember that if they give it to you that way, the air conditioning probably already has the increased, like the 125% or whatever the percentage is under 440. It's already figured in. Okay. They've already done the math. Right. Now, if you have a nameplate ampacity, okay, um, that tells us what the ampacity is, then all of those factors have more than likely already been factored in. Okay. The manufacturers have already done it. Now, why do we break it down when we're doing calculations for exams? Because most of the times exams have not caught up with that and they want to give it to you in piecemeal form. And so then you have to go through this little exercise. If, for example, you have an air conditioning unit and the circuit that's supplying it also supplies a motor, additional motor like a condenser fan motor. So then we have to just go through this little exercise when you're doing the standard method. The easy part about doing the optional method is it just becomes a little bit simpler in the approach. But I wanted to tell you, in the real world, you're typically the values that you get for the AC are going to be flat out the full values that you're going to use, and you compare it to the heat. That type of thing. It's really the way it's going to work in the real world. And again, we're not talking exam, we're just talking real world. So reality is if you're taking these values, then it's probably going to be a little bit different in amps depending on how you would promote it. Like again, the dish taking something at 125%, it's probably not going to change the overall service size. Now, on an exam, they may develop it so that it does, so that kind of screws you, tries to screw you. But in the real world, no, it's just basically compare the two and that type of thing, or whichever's larger is what you're going to go with in the world of the optional method. And in reality, the heat is typically, if it's heat strips like this, it usually always will win. Okay. Because the heat being a resistive load being is what it is. What's up, Shameless? Glad to have you here. So you'll probably just take the heat. Okay. So I'm being real today because we're talking about field application, not so much exam prep. Okay. Most of you out there probably, again, have already passed your exam. So you just want some field training. All right, so those are our values. So let's kind of walk through this. This won't be brain surgery for all of you. So what we do first, where should we be? 220.82, this is part 4, of course. Now, if you're in the 2026 edition, you're going to be in 120 rather than 220, okay? So we're still working in 20. We're going to work in 2023 because that's what most people have, okay? And again, as we go, if you have questions, please, by all means, throw them in the chat. I'll share them on the screen and we'll answer the best we can. All right, now, what's up, Tim? Glad to have you here. All right, so now if part B of 220.82, the general lighting and general use receptacle load are listed as 3 VA per square foot area of the outside dimension of the dwelling unit, no different than what we did for the standard method. Okay, so we're still under the 2023 edition of the NEC, we're still 3 VA per square foot. Okay, now that changes in the 2026 down to 2 VA per square foot, but we're in the 2023, so it's 3 VA per square foot. Now, one of the things that we have to remember is that porch area, that open porch, that needs to be removed. Okay, that needs to be taken out of our overall dimension, right? Now, you might be saying, where in the world do we see that? Okay, so let's go on really quick. Let's go look at code. Okay, this is where, NFPA, if you want to come after me, go ahead. If you want, I'm an educator. I'd rather be the one that goes to court and has to fight it personally. I don't mind taking on that. I don't mind taking on that challenge. Okay. All right. So here's where we're at right here when you're calculating. And the first thing is you'll see right here, number 1, here's your 3 VA per square foot for the general lighting and general use. So what is that basically covering? Okay. So that's basically covering all of the receptacles that are going to go around your living room. That's going to cover The receptacles in the bedroom, that's going to cover receptacles in your basement. That's going to cover all the general receptacles, that 3VA, but it's also going to cover all of the general lighting. So that's going to cover the lighting in the living room, lighting in the basement. Okay. It's going to cover the lighting in the bedroom, all that general lighting. Okay. It's all get absorbed in that calculation. Now, this is exactly the same for the standard method. So at this point, we're not doing anything strange. So this is just your way of saying, look, this is going to cover all of your daily receptacle general use, not specialty. It's not small appliance branch circuits. It's not covering the kitchen receptacles under that aspect, not covering the laundry, okay, that type of thing. Not any appliances that are going to get specific circuits to it. It's not what we're covering. Just all your general stuff get lumped into that 3VA per square foot. Okay, makes sense? All right. Okay, as long as we're here. I got to show you. And here is, it says right here, each floor area shall be calculated from the outside dimensions of the guide. It says the calculated area shall not include open porches, garages, or unused or unfinished spaces not adaptable for future use. That's important. Why? Why is that important? Because under the standard method in the 2023, the garages do get included, whereas under the optional method, the garages don't get included. The little nuances that you got to think about, especially if you're transitioning from 2020 to 23 and you're out there doing a load calculation, that type of thing. Oh, by the way, I will remind you, fast track students, that in your program, you do have these nifty little charts and little worksheets you can print out and laminate and put them in your code book as bookmarks. And you get a dry erase pen and you can use those to do your load calculations. Snap a picture of it and you can share that with the inspector or with the city. That way they can see your load count, because some jurisdictions want a load count. Really? I mean, my brother runs into a case where he just does 200, 200, 200 amp or 400 amp, 400. But at some point, you're going to run into an inspector that says, I need, or a permitting process that says, I need a load count. Well, work it out, snap a pic. There you go. Helps you out. And then you can wipe it off and reuse it again. They're available in your course. So don't ask me to email you. It's embedded in your course. Okay. Okay. All right. So anyway, let's go back. So there you go. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to do that. So in the lesson, we said that our dimensions were 35 by 55, right? All right. And our 7 by 10 was the front porch. So 35 by 55, and never trust my math, guys. Always calculate it out. And gals, Tara, all of us calculate it out. So 35 by 55, that is 1,925 square feet. Now, this is just a ranch style, one floor. But remember, if there was two floors, a basement, which is adaptable for future use, then you have to include the square footage of the basement as well. Okay. And also, I'll mention that people say this, I get this on questions all the time. Okay, Paul, let's say this was a ranch and the basement was unfinished and I'm doing the first level. What about the basement area? Well, you add that in your square footage, that calculates at 3VA per square foot, so that if they come back and finish off the basement later, that VA per square foot has already been calculated. So any additional general use lighting or general use receptacles are already figured into the load calculation. You're not going to add any additional VA. And that's something that many people get confused with when they go finish a basement off and the service has already been established. Assuming that the electrician knew what they're doing, okay? If I'm going to finish off a basement and all I'm going to do is they're going to be gypsuming it and adding it off rooms, it's just general use rooms, basements, bedrooms, whatever, then I don't need to add any new VA to this. It's not going to add any additional load to the service. Why? Because the VA has already been accounted for. That's why they do it this way. Now, if I'm doing this basement, I'm adding something special, like a sauna or a hot tub or something, then you've got to reevaluate the size of the service to make sure that you have enough headroom on it. And we do have a coffee hour where we talked about that. Then you're going to look and see whether or not you still have some additional capacity in order to be able to do that. Now, I'll tell you how I do it. I make life simple. if I'm looking to see whether a service has additional capacity, I personally take it as a mission to redo the calculation myself. So I'll go through and gather all the appliances and everything and do it like it's a fresh load calculation. Okay. Some people will do things like, "What's up, Greg? Glad to have you here." Some people will go and use the the electric bill and try to get 12 months of electric, what's the peak, what's the most they've used. And that's okay. Me, I don't. I redo the calculation if they're going to add something special to see whether the service is adequate or not. That's what I do. It's just me. It's easier for me to do that and go around and try to get the appliance nameplates and add things up, or use a worst case scenario and add things up, than it is for me to pull some data from people to get them to give me a copy of their bill. Sometimes people are just difficult to deal with, so I just do my own load calc. That's just me. You do you. All right. So anyway, that's what we're talking about. So in our scenario, we're doing volume again. It is already up. What in the world is going on? What? What do you mean turn it up again? What? I turned it up. What is going on? Hold on. It's dropped down again. What is going on here, folks? All right, let me turn it up again. I don't know what's going on. Why the volume keeps dropping? Thanks for letting me know. Okay. I don't know what's going on with that, my friends. I apologize. Sorry about that. Suitcase. I'm not sure why it keeps dropping on its own. But anyway, sorry about that. All right, where was I? Oh, it's so easy to get me sidetracked. All right, so now let's go back to the lesson here. But thanks for letting me know. All right, so we have 35 by 55, which is let's see here, 1925. Now let's take away that 7 by 10 foot. That's 70 square feet. Okay. So we're going to so take that 1925. We're going to take that 70 away because, like I said, we don't need it. We don't need it. So we're going to take it away. Adam says, turn up your hearing aid. All right. So 1,855 square feet. Now we're going to multiply that by 3 VA because that's what it said for us to do. Check the math. So that should be 5,565. So that's our general use in general lighting VA. So I'm going to check myself times 3. That is correct. Okay. So write that down and we'll move on to the next item. All right. So here we go. So this is covered. First part's covered. Let's go on to those small appliance brand circuits. So small appliance. Now we all know that the National Electrical Code says you have to have a minimum of what? You have to have a minimum of 2. That's at 210.11C1. At least 2. Now, ours we have 4. So today, I will tell you that you have to remember that it's a minimum of 2. But if they give you more, you've got to add the 1,500 VA for each one. Suitcase says, don't be a Richard. Is it Karen's and Richards? Is that what it is? So I always thought it's don't be a Paul. That's what they tell me on TikTok when I call people out for stuff. They go, don't be a Paul. So 1,500 VA each. In our case, we have 4. When you're doing a walkthrough, it is important to look and see how many things are going to have in the kitchen, or how big the kitchen is, or how the kitchen's going to lay out, so that you do know how many small appliances. Now, if I'm going to do 2 in the kitchen, minimum of 2, but let's say I have a dining room and I'm going to take a separate 20 amp circuit there, that's a third small appliance. If I'm going to take a separate circuit, for example, to a nook, that's a fourth one. If I'm going to take a separate one to a pantry, that's a fifth one. Or maybe I'm going to put the nook on with the kitchen. It's important for you to determine this so that you can do a proper load calculation. So in us, it's easy. We know how many. It's going to be 4 of them. But again, it's something that you have to be aware of, whether you're doing a standard or you're doing the optional method like we're going to do today. Either way, you got to know. Okay. So lucky for us, it gave us a value. So that's what we're going to be using. Okay. All right. So we got 4 of them here at 1500 VA each. That's our small appliance. Again, 210.11C1 for those that want the code reference. Okay. And in the NEC, by the way, here we are right here. That's where we're getting it right here. And this is also where we're going to get the laundry in a second under 210.11C3 as well. Okay, so that'll just save us a little time because that's where we're going to get that as well. All right, so 4 times 1500. Again, 1500 VA for each. That is 6,000. So that's our small appliance brand circuit. Okay. Next is that laundry circuit we just talked about. And again, you have to have at least one. That's 210.11C2. Well, we've got 2. So again, your house may be different. Most of the houses that I deal with that are, that we used to do that were 2,500 square feet and smaller, it typically has one laundry or we'll account for one laundry, that type of thing. Okay. Now, when we say 1,500 for the laundry, that's for the washing machine and any additional receptacles that may be in that laundry area that serve as part of the laundry circuit. That's fine, that type of thing. It's not including the dryer because a dryer is not required, okay, to have a dryer circuit. But I don't know of any dwellings that don't put one in, really, to be honest with you. Maybe they're gas only, but most of them I see that the customer always wants the option. So we put in a receptacle for the dryer. But anyway, that's a whole, we'll get there in a second. So at least 2, minimum of 1. In our case, we've got 2, right? So that's where we're going to go 1,500 right here. Oops. 1,500 times 2 is 3,000. So that's our laundry. Okay. Now, real quick. So here is where it differs from the standard part 3 method, right? So in the standard method, once we get all these values together, we apply demand to that. Okay, it's first 3,000 at 100%, the next 117,000 at 35%, and the remainder at 25%. I mean, we get some demands, right, for all of that. Well, we're still going to get the demands. We're still getting that. It's just done differently. So right now, all you do is write those numbers down. We're not there yet. We're not ready to apply any demand yet because now we have to go through and simply get the nameplates. And that's why I tell you guys in the real world, it's so much easy. Even if I've got an existing service and I'm going to be adding something to it, and I want to know whether I got headroom on it, all I got to do is go to the appliances that have the nameplate and take the values from the nameplate. That's it. Okay. So maybe have a garbage disposer, may have a trash compactor. Nameplate's going to be right there. They may have an air handler unit. They may have outdoor unit. I can get all that information. Yes, you got to go around and do it. Not a problem. Okay. But you have to do it. Okay. And once you get all that information, also, by the way, we are coming out with a online a form that you can use in mobile that you can take on a job site and punch in all the information while you're there, and then print it straight from there. And that'll help you later when you're doing a load calc. So look for that to come. It'll be on our website. It'll be free, but it's just another tool, and it'll also be available in our mobile app coming soon. Okay, that's cool. Okay, basically it's just information gathering so that you don't have to write things down on a piece of paper. It's going to be able to do it and then save it directly from your device. So it'll make life a lot easier for those that are doing on sites and they're looking for services, see whether they got to do an upgrade or kind of adding up information. So it's going to be a free thing that I bring to you folks. So don't worry. You'll get it. If you got our mobile app, you'll be able to get it for free. Okay. Free, free, free. Okay. Where was I? Dang it. Okay. So there we go. Minimum of 1, but we've got 2 laundry. Okay. I just want you to know it's different than the standard method in part 3 of 220. Whereas we're going to take all that and now we're going to apply those demands, right? At 220.42 and all that kind of stuff. So we're not doing that here. We're just going to write that info down and move on to the next thing. And so here's where you see that right here. So you see we had 55, 65, we had 6,000, we have 3,000. Now here's, again, this is where it's different because in 220.82, A, B, and C that we're working with, we're just taking these values and keeping them loaded, right? Loaded. Now, and A is simply setting the parameters in place to use the optional methods, such as the ampacity has to be what? For an optional method, it has to be 100 amps or greater, right? There's a threshold that we have to have, okay? It also tells us, the user, that the method can be used instead of the standard method. So we're choosing to use the optional method, okay? All right, that's what we're doing. It also reminds us that the calculation of the neutral is still got to be done using the standard method. But again, I'll give you a shortcut. If you're going to be even pulling conductors in and you size the conductors based on the load calc, if you don't make the neutral more than 2 sizes smaller, then it's essentially the same thing that you would get inside of a pre-made cable assembly. You're going to be okay. All right. But if you buy SE cable, it's already made. Now, this is dwellings, not commercial, not industrial. Okay. Dwelling applications makes life so much easier. So if I'm using 4/0 aluminum and that's my size, even if I put a raceway in there and I'm pulling conductors between it, right? If your neutral is 2/0 and my hots are 4/0 aluminum, you're going to be okay. Okay. There is absolutely nothing in that dwelling neutral wise that should cause it to come anywhere near the 2/0. Okay. That's just a safe, easy way to apply it in the field. Now, again, if you buy the cable assembly, it's already made. We already, as manufacturers, can't make the neutral conductor more than 2 sizes smaller. So just saves you a little time. Okay. Now, on an exam, you do have to know how to calculate it out. But we're talking about in the field today. That type of thing. So it just makes life a little easier. When you're buying your wire at the supply house and you're buying 4/0, then just buy the neutral, buy 2/0 for that. You're good to go. Okay. And then when you're buying the equipment ground, if it's a remote distribution panel that's inside because of your emergency disconnect, even maybe a service disconnect outside, then your equipment ground is based on the size of the overcurrent protected device, okay, which is probably 200 amps, which is probably a 6 gauge, something like, or 4 gauge if aluminum or something like that. So make life easier. Doesn't have to be hard. Doesn't have to be complicated. All right. Back to the lesson. All right. So let's go on and add these up while we're here. So 55, 65, 6,000, and 3,000 right here. That should be 14,565. I'm going to not trust me, and you shouldn't either. 5,565 plus 6,000 plus 3,000 is 14,565. Okay, so we're good there. The math's right. Now, unlike the standard method, we apply demands to the general lighting and general use receptacles in the optional method, but right now we're just banking that number and we'll wait. Okay, so just put that aside, 14,565. We're going to use that in a minute. All right, so we've done all this part up here. Now we're going to start pulling these nameplates. Okay. All right, so this is what we got. So the water heater is 4,500, easy. Dishwasher is 10. We're going to have to do some math here. In-sink waste disposer, we're going to have to do a little bit of looking up here. Hopefully, see if y'all have looked this up for me and tell me what the FLC is on this in-sink waste disposer. See who knows how to do that. Trash compactor, got to do a little math. Y'all know how to convert this, right? Amps times the volts is what's going to give us the VA. Y'all get it? Okay. What's up, Rob? Better late than never, my friend. All right, we have the 3 attic fans. We have the all this kind. So we got the clothes dryer. We got the counter mounted cooking. We got the wall mounted. Okay, we already know what that KW is. And remember, folks, KW is equivalent to kilovolts or KVA. Okay, KVA. So let's see. 7 kW is the same to 7 kVA or 7,000 watts. Okay, and 6 kW is 6,000 watts or 6,000 VA or 6 kVA. They're synonymous, right? What's that? Rob takes his exam tomorrow. Everybody, Rob's taking an exam tomorrow. So Positive vibes, Rob. Positive vibes. Remember, use the 3-wave method. First wave, answer everything you know right away. Electronically mark those that you have to spend more than about a minute on. In the second wave, you're going to go right to the ones that you marked. The moment that you answer it, you unmark it, but you're only going to spend about a minute and a half on those. If you still can't answer it, you leave it marked. You go to the next one. Don't get bogged down. Okay. Once you answer it, you uncheck it and go to the next one. In the third wave, you should have whatever's left checked. You work them that way. Okay. Do it in steps. That way, go through the first wave. The first thing you do when you sit down is start going through them, checking the ones that you can't answer right away, answer the ones you know right away. What you're doing is in the first 5-10 minutes of that exam, you're going to reduce down the number of questions you have to focus on because the other ones you just know, right? Because you answered them right away. Make sense? Focus, focus, focus. Stay in the zone. I know you got this. All right. Okay. Again, I remind you a KW is same as KVA. Yep, all that's the same. Now, we have to use table 430.248 because I need to find what the VA is. I need to convert what the VA is for that motor that we saw, okay? The other ones are easy because they give us the amps and they give us the volts. But we need to find the one for the in-sync waste disposer. See if nobody's looked that up for me yet. Nobody's got their code book handy. All right, now again, one huge difference here is when we're looking at all these appliances in the standard method, if we have 4 or more, we can apply a 75% demand. We're not doing that here. Here, we're just going to add up the nameplate for every one of the appliances. We're going to pull the nameplate and just write them down, okay? All right, so let's look at that. So there you go. That's the main difference, folks, is standard method, we're going to apply some demands. The optional method, we're still going to do demands, but we're going to do one big, huge one at the end, okay? That's the only real difference there. All right, so we're getting ready to lose TikTok here. Okay, so let's work through these. Here you go. Here's that water heater. 4,500, so there's no need to convert anything. That's just 4,500, which is, remember I said 4,500 is the same as 4,500 VA. Y'all know how I like to work in VA, so I always want to convert to VA the best I can, but they are synonymous. Hold on. TikTok is acting stupid today. Okay. All right, so that one's done. The next is that dishwasher. Now remember how we convert. Remember, Rob, how we convert is 10 amps times 120 because that's what was given to us in the question. So that is 1,200 VA. In-sync waste disposer. Now, we had to look for that half horsepower. So if you go to 430.248, because it is single phase, all right, that is 9.8 amps times the 115 because that's what's given in the question, okay? What is going on with my volume, folks? I do not know what's happening to the volume. It's not wanting to stay up. I don't know why that is doing that. So it is actually, I think it's dropping down because it's adjusting automatically to adjust for my sound. I think it says when it says it's too loud, it's auto adjusting, that type of thing. Let's see here. Bear with me. I don't think that's going to work. I don't know what to say, folks. I will move the mic closer to my mouth. I don't know why it's doing it. Okay, it won't stay up there very high. Okay, so it adjusts on its own and it dropping down. So I got to get through this lesson. So if you can't hear me, I'm sorry, guys. It is what it is. Turn your volume up. Yeah, it's something's going on in the theme, and the worst problem is I can't fix it. Let's adjust some stuff here. Let's see here. Maybe we'll do it this way. See if we got it going on here. Let's see. Bear with me real quick. I can adjust something. See if that doesn't help. No, it's doing it automatic, and I don't know how to fix it. folks. So it is what it is, guys. There's always something, and I can't control it. So I just have to roll with it and leave it what it is. It's always something. So we'll just have to roll with it. AI is taking over. Yeah, it is. But this is the best I can do, folks. So if you can't hear me and you want to leave, that's cool. We'll catch you next week. If you want to bug out, it's all good. Let's see here. See if that changes anything. Let's see here. That doesn't. I don't know if that changes anything. I don't know. It's not changing anything. It's just letting it's making it stay up higher, and it's automatic adjusting on its own. So I can't fix it, folks. I don't know what's causing it to do it. So it's in my software, obviously. So uh, anyway, I'm gonna roll through it. If you lose the audio again, I'll catch you next week. I'll figure it out. All right. So I just got to move through it and not worry about it. All right, the next one is the trash compactor. Oh, anyway, 9.8 times 115 is 1,127. And in trash compactor is 7.5 amps times 120. So that is 900 VA. And then the 3 attic fans we had already done at 4.2 amps times 3, 12.6. So it's 12.6 amps times 120 volts. Okay, so that is 1,512. And y'all can test that and see if that helps the math, if that works out. And works that. Okay. Get rid of that. All right. Okay. All right. So there we go with that. All right. And let's see. Next is total. So we're going to add them all up. So we got 4,500, we got 1,200, we got 1,127 and 90 and 900 right here. That's that trash compactor. And then we have 1,512. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 appliances here so far. We aren't finished yet, but we have so far. Okay. Now it is actually the volume is changing, so I don't know why it's doing that, but I'll have to figure it out. Let's see here. So we have a total of 9,239. I said, but wait, we're not done because we still have what? The wall-mounted oven, and we still have the counter-mounted cooking unit that we have to take into consideration, right? All right. So we're going to take that 9,239, and we're going to carry it over. And now we also have that clothes dryer, right? All right, now the clothes dryer is not required in a load calculation, but if it's there, it's given to you. You need to take it into consideration. On an exam, they usually always have a clothes dryer in it, so you'll account for it. But I just wanted you to know, in real life, in a real world, um, it's an important question to ask because they may have a gas dryer that does not have a branch circuit for the dryer. And guess what? Um, I've already done all that. And there is no box in there, Leo, that says adjust setting. That's the problem. There isn't any. It's doing it automatically. So there isn't a setting. I looked at it while I was sitting here. It's something's going on that I'm going to have to figure out what's going on. So it's doing its own little thing that I can't control. I mean, I watch it move, and there's no setting on it that does that. So I don't know what's going on with it. Anyway, enough of that. All right, so in the optional method, we're taking purely the nameplate. Now remember, in this regular part 3 method, what we did was it was 5,000 was the minimum, or the nameplate, whichever is larger. Okay, so if it was less than 5,000, say 4,500, we're still going to take 5,000. Well, in the optional method or part 4 method, we're going to take whatever the nameplate gives us. Even if it was less than 5,000, we're going to take specifically whatever the nameplate gives us. And that's what we're going to use. Okay. So that's what we're gonna actually use. Okay. So in this case, it was 5,500, as you see right here on the screen. Oops, right here. So we're going to take the 5,500. So remember that 9,239 right here. We're going to take that from the carryover, right? And add it to 5,500, which is that dryer. And that should be 14,739. So let's see. So 9,239 plus 5,500 equals 14,739. And that's what we have, 14,739 right here. There we go. All right. All right. But we still take that 14,739. We're carrying it over, folks. We're just going through the process. Now we have those two household appliances right here that we have to take into consideration. So there's a 7 kW cooktop and a 6 kW wall mounted oven. And remember, we're taking nameplates. So that is our nameplate. That is our value. So we're going to use that value. Okay. So when you're doing the neutral, remember in the standard method, under the neutral, it's 70%. Okay. So we have an allowance in 220.61b to size the neutral 70% of whatever the ungrounded conductors were. Okay. Sizing for the load. Okay. So for these counter-mounted cooking units, for this wall-mounted oven, and even that clothes dryer, right? And you're going to actually take the actual value from the standard method to do that. But like I said, in the real world, it's not that big a deal. We're not going to worry about that because basically you're going to buy a cable assembly that already has the neutral sized and all that kind of stuff. And for the service, you're not going to worry about it because, again, it's already, if you don't go more than two sizes smaller than the hot conductors, and you're going to be okay. Okay. So this is just real world tips. All right. So 7,000 and 6,000. So yep, you guessed it. We're going to take that 14,739. We're just going to add 7,000 and 6,000. That's it. So that should be 27,730. Remember, we haven't added any demands yet. We're just taking nameplates and square footage and VA, 3 VA per square footage and small appliances and laundry. That's it. That's all we've done. We're just adding numbers up. That's why the optional method is so easy. You're just taking the numbers. All right. So let's see here. 14,739 plus 7,000 plus 6,000. That is 27,739. And that is what we have on the screen right here. Okay. So we're good to go right here. Yep. Right there. There we go. We got it. We're not done yet. We still got heating. We still have to, we have all this, still have some stuff to do. Okay. Now, that's our total for cooking is 7 and 6. So that's 13. So we added them two together. That's the 27. Okay. Now, we're actually done the first part. We don't have to do heat and air conditioning comparisons yet. We're done the first part. So we need to finish up the first part, B, before we move on to C. Okay. So let's see here. Let's bring this all together. So remember what our general lighting was? Let's see, where are we at? Right here, 14,565. Remember what that small appliance, when you added the small appliances together, that took us up to 27,000. If you add all of the appliances together, that was 27,739. Okay, added on to this 14,565, right? And we'll recap that. You see right here, that was our appliances, right? 14, right? Just kind of go back through real quick so you can see where these numbers come from, right? There's the 9, there's the 5, okay? There's the other value. So that's where we got the 27. So we add these two numbers together. That should be 42,304. Let me double check. 14,565 plus 27,739, 42,304. Okay, we're good. Now, here's where we can apply the demands. And that's what it says in the National Electrical Code. Now, where do we go to see that? Let's go to the code real quick. Right here. And here is where you see, okay, so here is all of this information we got right here, right? We haven't got to C yet. Okay, we haven't got to C yet. So we're up here. So here's the rule. It says the general calculation load Okay, it shall be not less than 100% of the first 10. So we're going to take 10 out of the gate, 10 out of the gate, plus 40% of the remainder of the following loads. And that was all of these right here that we just did. Okay. All of those. Remember, we added the water heater in, we added all the fasten in place appliances, we got the ranges. Well, this case was a cooktop and oven, and then we added the clothes dryer. So we've taken care of all of this, right? In our math. Okay. We've done it all. Okay. All right. So let's see here. So 42,304 minus 10. Minus 10, because we got to take that 10 and put it to the side. We'll bring it back. Don't worry. We'll put it to the side. So that gives us 32,304. We're going to do that value by 40%. So 32,304 times 40% or 0.40 is 12,961.6. Okay. Now remember, 0.5 or greater, we're rounding up, right? 0.4 or less, we can drop off. So in this case, we're going to round it to 12,922. And then we're going to add that 10 back because we had to take the 10 at 100%, right? The first 10 at 100, remember? So we're going to add that 10 back to it. So that gives us a total of 22,922. Okay. Makes sense? So that is part B. That's the first part. Easy peasy so far, right? Not troubling at all. Pretty simple, pretty easy to do. Okay. All right. Let's go on. Now, take a deep breath. We're now going to focus on C, and it's really going to go easier. I'll give you some scenarios, but it really isn't brain surgery here. Let's take a deep dive and look at it. Now, unlike the standard method, okay, where you compare heat versus AC, okay, you're essentially still doing it, but in this case, you're looking at which one's larger. Now, most exams, if they ask you to do an optional calculation, folks, most of them are not going to be overly complicated. They're literally going to tell you this is the AC and this is the heat. And you take whichever one is larger, right? You get me? That's it. Whichever one yields the larger value, that's what you take. Okay. There's nothing in here about taking the heat versus AC and taking the AC at 125%, the compressor, and then add the sum of the others. That's why it's so easy here. You're taking either or. Now, in our case, we have separate heat module, and then we have separate air conditioning components. Okay. And we're trying to see which is going to yield the larger of the two. Okay. And so again, pretty simple and straightforward. So here we go. The first thing you want to do is convert any VA into amps. So that's the first thing we try to do, right? So here, I don't need to do that for the heat because the heat's pretty straightforward, right? It's 15 kW. The air handler, which was 3.2 amperes, okay, which right here is 3.2 right here times 115, which is what you got here on the screen. That is 368 VA. So you're just going to write that down. The 16.6 amperes times 230 should be 3,818 VA. Check my math out there. And then, of course, the condensing fan motor is 2 amps at 115. So 2 amps times 115 is 230. So we have all the VAs. We have everything that we need. So we can actually start comparing now. Okay. Now remember what it says. It says 220.82C1 says take 100% of the nameplate ratings of the air conditioning and cooling. That's the first one. So that is C1. That's the very first one. It says, well, do we have air conditioning in our values? So yes, we do. So let's do the math. Again, 100%. So it is everything that's involved in the air conditioning, okay, and cooling. So it's 3818. Oops, hold on. 3818 plus 230 plus 368. That is 4,416 VA. So 100%. Okay. Look, here's where people get confused. They go, well, don't I have to take the, like it says in 220.60? That's in part 3. You're in part 4. Don't I take the largest motor here at 125%? No. It says 100% of the nameplate values of the air conditioning loads. That's it. 100%. So that's 4,416 is all you're going to use. Now, you and me already know this, okay? You're savvy. You're not new to this game. I don't even have to look anymore when it comes to this. And I could have saved a step here because I already knew that the heat was 15,000. There ain't no, in a dwelling, there is no air conditioning unless you're doing some mega mansion. And then it's probably still got heat strips and stuff like that that may make a difference. So I can already tell you that in our example, I didn't even need to look at the air conditioning because the heat is 15,000. It's already the largest. So again, that's kind of, you get used to that and you can save yourself a step. That's why everybody does the optional method. There's no way you're going to use the standard method. Okay. All right. Well, next it says, well, C2 says, well, 100% of the nameplate rating of heat pump when the heat pump is used without any supplemental heat. So if it's just a heat pump and you're in areas in the country where there is no supplemental heat needed, okay, maybe you're in a certain part of the country where it doesn't get above a certain temperature, then maybe it's just a heat pump for efficiency, and you don't need any supplemental heat strips, okay, then you just take the nameplate value from the heat pump and you're going to compare that. Well, probably not going to have air conditioning if you have a heat pump. If you have a heat pump, you're going to go right to this one if you're in the area of the country where you don't need supplemental heat. Boom. Okay. So we don't need this one because if you look at what we got, it didn't say anything about a heat pump. The way it was broken out, it looks to me like this is central air and then it has a separate heating module, inline heating module. So again, you're just be prepared for whatever you run into because you might run into a heat pump. Okay. And if you're in a part of the country where it doesn't have supplemental electric heat, okay, then boom, you just take it and run. Kevin, if you're getting ready to take your journeyman's test, hopefully you're in the Fast Tracks program. You probably won't get any of these optional methods. But if you go over to Fast Tracks Tube and you're a subscriber, then you can watch my videos on how to do the standard method because that's probably what you're going to run into on an exam. Just so you know. Today's episode, we're doing real world type calculations, which you'd run into in the field. But I just want to give you that heads up because I know you're getting ready to take your test soon. All right, so there we go. Let's move on. All right, C3. Now, this one is a lot of the areas in the country, like where I'm at in the country, okay? It says 100% of the nameplate rating of the heat pump compressor. Okay, so we're taking the value from the compressor from the nameplate and 65% of the supplemental electric heat from the central electric space heating system. So in my scenario is I have a heat pump and then I also have a separate supplemental heating system. Okay, so I would take whatever that KW is, I would take that at 65%, and then I would take the heat pump's compressor amp values that I would convert to VA at 100%, and that's what I would compare, or that's what I would use if that's what system you happen to be dealing with. Now, on the exam, you're comparing and taking the largest. In the real world, it's just as simple as which one do you have? And that's the one you go with. So I think the vast majority of people make this in the field way more complicated than it needs to be because they're all really right here. You just pick whichever one you're dealing with, depending on where you're at in the country, right? Now, it also gives us some additional and says, you know what, by the way, it says if the heat pump compressor in the heat pump itself is prevented from operating at the same time that the heat is on. So in other words, there's some type of lockout or thermostatically controlled system where when the heat pump is running in supplemental heat mode, right? So that the outdoor compressor could not come on, then if that's the case, then it says, look, if that's the case, and it does not need to be added, it does not need to be added to the supplemental heat for the total central heating load. So what that means is I can just take the supplemental heat value if when that comes on, the outdoor compressor doesn't come on. Now, why is that? Well, because the heat is larger, right? And it's going to pull way more. The supplemental heat's probably going to pull way more than the compressor would pull. Okay. So, like it says in the code, it says, look, you know what? If that supplemental pump compressor is prevented from operating at the same time the supplemental heat is, then it does not need to be added to the supplemental heat. So I can leave off the compressor altogether and take the 65% of the supplemental heat and just use that. There you go. It's simple. Okay. Now ours didn't say heat pump, but you could get this is a real world. You probably may run into heat pumps. I see more heat pumps than most. I have a heat pump in my house, but I also have supplemental heat. And I had a 15 kW strip, and I removed one of the strips to go with so that my generator can handle the surge. As long story, but I disconnected one of the inline or one of the heat strips in order to bring the kW down, that type of thing. Because I'm savvy like that. You've probably done the same thing. It doesn't get that cold. 15 kW was overkill in my area here in Virginia. My heat pump is a Rude's, very energy efficient. It actually can work all the way down into the 20s. I've experienced it already, and it kept it at 75 degrees with no problem. I also have a monitor on my system so I can see what it's drawing, how long it's on. So again, I'm a nerdy like that. So I have all these things on my house. So as you guessed, probably. So anyway, long range. Okay. The next one, C4. The NEC says 65% of the nameplate rating of the electric space heating if less than 4 separately controlled units. Okay. So in our case, this looks like the winner, right? Because we only have one separately controlled. Now you might say, wait a minute, Paul, didn't it say 3 banks? Yes, but those 3 banks more than likely are in line. They act as one. Now, what do we mean by this? Well, you could have baseboard heat that are electric space heating. You could have a situation where you have more than 4. And if you have more than 4, then you're going to use the 40%. In our case, we only have 3 here, but whether or not they were separate controlled like baseboard heaters, or they're one inline module that act as one controlled unit. So you can't separately control the heat strips. They're just one unit. So that is basically a single controlled unit, but it is less than 4. So it looks like for us, we're going to be using the 65%. So 15,000 times 65% is 9,750. Now, that is still greater than the AC was, right? At 100%. We're good to go. And remember, we're taking full values here. That's it. How does this differ from part 3? Is that when we compared heat versus AC, remember we would have taken the air handler unit into account with the heat. But we don't do that here. It just says take the heat, okay? Electric heating, that's it. Doesn't say anything about that air handler. Now, the air handler had to be calculated in with the AC because that's part of the cooling system, but did not ask me to do anything with that here, okay? Makes sense? Hopefully it makes sense to you. All right, so far this looks like the winner. And then C5 is the one where you have heating 4 or more space controlled units. Okay, that'd be like baseboard heat, things like that. No, right now we have one controlled unit because it's all in one packaged system. Okay, But again, you could have separate units like baseboard heat that you need to be aware of. Again, just look at what your system is. It's pretty simple. Do a walk around. Look at what you've got. Uh, it's not brain surgery, let's say. All right, so the last one is C6, and this is you're dealing with one of those electric thermal storage or other type of unique underground geothermal type of heating systems. I've only dealt with, I think, one. Well, I would say two, but one, the guy, there was a specialist that was doing that for the guy, and I didn't really have to do anything. He told me what circuits to bring. It was pretty easy because really, um, it's just basically they brought me the load values for it, and that's what I use. So keep the 100% of the nameplate, and that's it. It makes it simple. I have not seen since then any dwellings that would have this type of system to do that, and if it is, it's minimal, that type of scenario. All right, so we have everything. We've kind of gone through the list, so let's see what we've got. So we have the value from B, which was 22,922. You remember? Then we had the value from C, which is the heating and air conditioning. We got 99,750. It's just that simple. 22,922 VA plus the 9,750 VA should be 32,672. We will see. So I'm going to take 22,922 plus 9,750. That 32,672. That is correct. Now, easy peasy. First thing, we need to make sure that we can stick with the optional method. We did all this. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. But now we have to validate that we can stay because remember, we have to be over 100, right? So 32,672 divided by 240, that's 136.13 amps. The 0.13 we can drop. So that's 136 amps, okay? So that's what we have. Now, if you're wondering where it tells us to drop, that is 220.5B. And so it's less than 0.5. So that's how we drop it. Remember, the dropping really comes to when we're dropping amps. You really don't come to dropping VA and you really don't come to dropping watts. You can, and it'll get you to the same place. I don't want you to overthink that. I typically try to take full amounts where necessary, but there is an occasion where I will drop around something when I'm dealing with amp values, that type of thing. So again, it's at the end of the day, you're in the field. This is an episode about being in the field. It's not going to be a big deal. Okay. All right. Let's see. Now, again, we said, what up if it was that heat pump? And I showed you what it would be. And that's exactly, just so you understand, if it was a heat pump, so the argument would be 15,000 times, but so there's the same value would be for the heat pump. Okay. That scenario. All right. Makes sense. Now, if it was not interlocked, right? If it wasn't interlocked, like we said, then you would have to, and my picture's blocking this, so you can't necessarily see this. So I can probably just show you this by turning off my picture real quick. No, it's not letting me do it. So any rate, so anyway, so trust me, it should be, if you add these two up right here, again, I got all kinds of technical issues today. This is what it would be if it was a heat pump and you were able to turn off or isolate the compressor, then it would be the nameplate value, okay, which was 4,416 plus the 9,750, and that would be where you get the 14,160. That's if you were doing that one, okay? And that's assuming that that's what the nameplate value would be if that's what your heat pump nameplate value was. Makes sense? Okay. All right. So again, here, let me see here if I can. There we go. Easier if I just did that. Okay. So we got our two values. That was 37,088. Okay. Let me double check that again. So 22,922 plus, I was supposedly wanted to make an error in here so I could correct it, but there we go. So yeah, so 32,672. What did I do? Hold on, what did I do? Let me make sure I do this right. 39 in for our example, I'll make sure I did it right. So it's 32,672. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I was showing you how to do it. Sorry. I was showing you how to do it if it was using the heat pump. So that's where the 14,166 would go, and that would be 37,088. Then you do that 3788 divided by 240, and that's what it would be. So you see the difference if it was a heat pump versus what we did, where it was isolating, and we were just using the heat, like in our example. It's not that big a difference. So we went from a 136 amps to 155 amps. So that's the difference on whether or not I had a heat pump with the supplemental heat uh, versus the the three separate heat strips or the one single controlled unit. Okay, so you can kind of see where it does change it a little bit. Most cases, this dwelling is going to be a 200 amp anyway. So people, so they're like, it's not an issue. But just so you can see the difference. Okay. Also, in this one, you're probably going to be 150 amp. And here you see it just bumps it up to a 175. Okay. All right. Now let's get back to our example that we did. So in our example, it was 136, right? So 136 does not correspond in 240.6a to the standard overcurrent protected devices. Doesn't correspond. So when you go here and you look and you say, well, I got 125. That ain't going to work. So you go to the next standard size, 150. So our service rating is going to be a 150. Okay. Now, let's get into this here. So for services, now here's the big question people ask me, Paul, when can I use 310.12? And the answer to that is it doesn't matter whether you're using the standard method or the optional method. I can use it as long as all the parameters fit. Okay. As long as all the parameters fit, I can always use 310.12. That's not an optional. That is a permissive rule. Means it's in the code. You can use it. In all cases, you can use it unless you don't meet the caveats. Okay. For those that don't know what 310.12 is, that is the 83% rule. Okay. And you have to meet some caveats to use it. Now, whether I'm using part 3 under the standard method or I'm using part 4 under the optional method, I can use 310.12. And you want to, people ask me, when do I assume the use of it? You always assume it's not optional. It's not like it's optional. It's there in the code. 310.12 is there for you to use as long as you meet the criteria. Well, what is that criteria? Well, let's look in our case. So here's what it says, 310.12. It says for a service rated 100 through 400 amps. So we're already there because we know it's over 100, but it's not over 400. So yes, we're there. The service conductor supplying the entire load associated with the one family dwelling, or the service conductor supplying the entire load associated with an individual dwelling unit in a two-family or a multifamily dwelling. So yes, folks, you can use 310.12 for the individual dwelling units of a multifamily dwelling. If you're in our Fast Tracks program, that is covered in unit, what is that? Unit 11, I believe. So important that you understand how to do that. Okay. If you don't have our exam prep course, go check it out. All right. Okay. Where am I at here? Shall be permitted, okay, permitted to have ampacity not less than 83% of the service rating. Well, we already know what the service rating is. That's 150 amps. We already did that. Okay. And that is in 310.12a. Now, feeder applications to that dwelling unit, that individual dwelling unit, let's say in a multifamily, that's going to be 310.12b probably for the most case. Okay. So we already know up front that I can do it. Oh, by the way, for those that are in earlier editions, you're probably going to see it in 310.15b7. Okay, if you're looking for 310.12 and you can't see it in your edition, you know why? Because it changed. Okay, so you have to go back and check. Okay, all right. Again, we're doing optional. All right, so here we go. All right, so now let's do this. So we already know this applies for us. We're good. Now, follow the rules. Simple. It says the minimum service or feeder rated permitted when using 310.12 is 400 amps. That's the maximum. So it can't be more than 400. If your load went over 400 amps, then guess what? You got to go back to sizing the normal way using 310.16 ampacity of conductors. That this is only applicable if it's between 100 and 400 amps. Okay. All right. It also applies to single phase, right? 12240 volt. It also applies to the single phase derivative of 12208. It also applies in three phase applications where you might be going to an individual dwelling unit. So we'll go look at the code so you can see how this applies. But it's so important that when you apply it, you understand when you can apply it. Okay. Now, before we even we'll go look at the code real quick so we can make sure. Listen, hold on. Let me make sure I get all of it. I want to make sure I get everything on the screen for you guys because I know how important these things can be. So I want to make sure I do it. Okay. All right. So now let me go to the code really quickly and we'll get to the code. And I want to show you this so that you can see how the wording is. All right. So I'm in the 2023 NEC. All right. So here we go. So this is the wording. So see, it says single phase dwelling units. So while you're going to see a reference in here to some applications where a three phase derivative of that is where it goes from a three phase and it only takes two of the ungrounded conductors in a neutral. Okay, so two ungrounded conductors in the neutral from a 208 Y 120 volt system, which is typically a three phase, but it's a derivative of that. Okay, it's still single phase, but it's a derived from a three phase system. If that confuses you, definitely go watch my 3D rating demystified video. Okay, you definitely want to watch that. Okay, so for a one family dwelling, that's what we're doing. And individual dwelling units of a two family or a multifamily. Okay, so it does apply to those individual dwelling units as well. Okay, it says service and feeder conductors supplied by a single phase 12240 volt system shall be permitted. So it's not required to do this. You can size them full size if you want. If you don't want to use the 83% rule, then you can do it full size if you want. That's up to you. It's your choice. But I'm going to tell you, since it's going to typically be what you're going to see on an exam if you're using 310.12, regardless of standard or optional. Okay. Now it says for a one family dwelling and individual dwelling units of two family or multifamily, single phase feeders consisting of two ungrounded conductors and a neutral from a 208 Y 120 volt system, which is typically a three phase, but you're not taking all of the phases, right? You're just taking two of the phases, okay, and the neutral. Okay, shall be permitted to be sized in accordance with 310.12 A through C. Okay, so this one, if it's 12240 volt, you can use A through D. If it's this one and it's derived from a 208Y120 single three phase, it derives single phase from it, then you're limited to A through C. And the only difference in these two, by the way, is the grounded conductor size. Okay. And that's what's going to tell me that when you get down here, when you're using this method here, be aware of you might have some harmonic distortion or you may have some imbalance on that neutral, and the neutral may need to be larger. Okay. So just that's all that's really saying. All right. So let's get back to me. So we already know we can do it. So let's go back to the lesson. Okay. So in our case here, the minimum size service or feeder rating for us, since it's a service, is 150 amps. Now we do that by 83%. Now, where do we see the 83%? Okay, let's go back to code. Right here, we're doing service right here. Okay, you see it? All right, see this 83% right here? Notice it says not less than 83% of the service rating. Why is that important? Well, let me talk to you. This table or this allowance to use this 83%, the way it's listed here in the code, is in a perfect world. Perfect world. If the ambient temperature isn't different than 83 degrees Celsius, okay, in a perfect world, no, 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a perfect world. 30 Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Perfect world. There's no ambient adjustment. Also, if you don't have more than 3 current carrying conductors, then you can ignore 310.15C1. Okay, so you don't have an adjustment to take place. And if the ambient temperature isn't different than 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, you don't have a correction to take place, right? So then you can just go right to this freaking table that's on here, okay, and make life easy for you. But that table is derived from basically taking the rating and multiplying that by 83%. And the conductor that's given in that table, it cannot be smaller than that. That is a minimum size. It cannot be smaller. Can it be larger? Absolutely, if you want. You want to full size it, go for it. It just can't be smaller. Now, why is that important? Well, even if I have an adjustment or correction, now chances are you're not going to have, in this case, you're not going to have more than 3 current conductors. So you're not going to have to worry about that, right? But you may have an ambient temperature issue where it does, and I know you all do this on your services, but most of you probably don't. You probably don't even pay attention to what the ambient is. But at the end of the day, on an exam, they might. So if you did have to do that and you're actually increasing the size of the conductor because of the ambient temperature, the end of the day, that's fine. It still can't, whatever the value comes out, it still can't be less than 83%. So even if you're using this 83% to size it and you're making a correction due to ambient temperature, then it still can't be less than 83%. And how do you do that? Well, if we know what the 83% value is, right, then we can use division to take that ampacity value at the 83%, whatever it is we figured it out at, that's the minimum threshold, and we divide that by the multiplier that's in 31015B, 1, then that'll give me a larger size, right? Then I go to 31016 and I select that conductor. And now I can verify that it's not less than 83% by taking that new conductor's ampacity and now multiply that by 83%. And it should be equal to or greater at whatever the 83% is that you started out with. And if it is, then guess what? It's at least 83%. So if that confuses you, in the back, Informative Annex D has an example, I believe it's D7, has an example where you see how this works. And it shows you how to account for that, okay? So I just want people to realize that if you pull the 83% and you don't take any factors for adjustment or correction into it, then you can go right to, there's a table there and you can just pull from the table. But don't be fooled. If there is some type of correction that has to take place, that even after you correct the ampacity of that conductor, it still can't be less than 83%. Otherwise, you just size it based on 31016 and forget the 83%. Okay? Does that make sense? That is probably, I'm going to tell you what, ampacities, adjustment and corrections, conductor sizing is some of the hardest rules to follow in the National Electrical Code. Do me a favor. Derating Demystified, and I think we have a version 3.0. We will be doing a new one for 2026, but that's available over on Fast Track's Tube. Go watch it. If you have a subscription, go watch it. If you're a Fast Tracks Enhanced member, it's included in your package. Go watch it. You will get a better understanding of adjustment and corrections to the point where you'll now feel really comfortable with that. Okay. And even at the end, I do an example of one just like this at the end. Okay. All right. All right. So in our case, 83%, which is 124.5. Okay. Or in our case, 0.5, it's 125 amps. Okay. Then we're going to select conductor from the 75-degree column. Okay. Because it is over 100 amps. Okay. So we're going to go onto the 75-degree column. Okay. Now, most parts, we're going to tell you that it's THHN, THWN-2, that type of thing. But in this case, it's over 100 amps. Okay. Now, little thing for you test taker folks. When you're doing ampacity, adjustment and correction of conductors, or trying to determine what the conductor's ampacity is, typically they'll tell you the conductor insulation. Okay. But we have to remember is that there's that missing link component. So I'm using 75 here because I'm telling you I'm going to tell you that we're using THHN. That's the most common building wire out there. Most common wire rating is that. But keep in mind that if something's missing on a question, they give you the terminal ratings, but they don't tell you the wire type or the insulation type, or they don't tell you the load terminal ratings. Then if it's less than 100 amps, then you're going to want to fall back on the 110.14c rules. And remember that if they don't give you those equations, anything that is under 100 amps, you're going to be under the 60-degree column. Anything that is over 100 amps, you're going to be under the 75-degree column. Even if you're under the 60-degree column, okay, and it's less than 100 amps, but they tell you the terminal's rated 75, the lugs are rated 75, the insulation's rated at least 75, then guess what? Then you can ignore the fact that it's under 100 amps, under the 60 degree. You can go right to the 75-degree column. Now, the only exception to that is things like non-metallic sheath cable, which you got to stay in the 60-degree ampacity column. Now, I can do adjustment and corrections from the 90 because that's what it tells us in 334.80. But at the end of the day, stay in the 60-degree column, make your life simple. Okay. You can't get more ampacity out of that. Okay. 60 degrees is the maximum ampacity column that you're going to use in 310.16 when it comes to things like non-metallic sheath kit. Okay. Makes sense? Okay. Don't overcomplicate it. Again, go watch my derating demystified. All right. All right. So in our case, we're not using the table. We're doing it the old school way. So in this case, 125 amps, then we're going to go to 310.16, and under 310.16 or 310.15b16, depending on what cycle you're in, 1 gauge copper. And again, always assume copper unless they state otherwise. Okay. Unless the exam states otherwise. Now, in the real world, you're probably going to be using aluminum, and people are all freaking out about aluminum. And aluminum today is not like the aluminum that your grandfather used or I used back in the day. Okay. Aluminum is much different now. It has the same ductileness as copper. Torquing it, you still follow the torquing rules, 110.14d. If you torque it, aluminum, you don't have to come back and check it unless, insurance protocols require you to do it every year on a maintenance exam. If you do it right, it's not going to creep the same way. If you over tighten it, it will creep worse than copper because it's a softer metal and you have damaged it. That's why it's so important to torque it correctly the first time, because if you don't damage it, then that termination will stay consistent. Okay. It's not Paul preaching to you. It's facts. I've spent a career working with wiring cable in understanding the nuances of the conductor and the molecular structure and how it reacts to being compressed and how creep works and that type of thing. That's why I created this thermal course, because I saw so many people out there giving false information about thermal imaging and terminations and the heat dissipation and the ratings of breakers. And people don't understand that there's some hidden time bombs in there that you can show, right? And you might say in a residential, everything's not loaded up, Paul. How the heck do I check terminations? where there's tips for how you do that. And we have tips for you to do that. So, again, that's why this course is like no other course. It's not like a normal thermography course. It is not. Okay. There is no accreditation, there is no requirement for thermography. Okay. We all try to follow the same voluntary standard. The only difference in mine is that I focus on electrical. That's it. I don't care about building envelope. I don't care about all that other crap. I'm an electrician. I focus on electrical. I focus on how you sell your thermal products. I focus on how you deal with customers, how you interpret things, how you don't cry wolf. That's what I do. Okay, in our program. If you're interested, we'd love to have you in the program. Okay. Um, where was I at? Oh, by the way, the certification doesn't expire. You have to renew every time new modules come out, means you have to go do the module. But once you do the module, you'll automatically stay current. Look, folks, I'm not the kind of guy that nickel and dimes you. I try to be as simple with my programs as I can. Okay. So that's what we did. Okay. Anyway, back to the lesson. All right. So in this case, if it was aluminum under the 75-degree column, then it would be 2-aught aluminum, which is good for 135 amps. Okay. Which will also work fine. Okay. So you might be saying, well, wait a minute. The service rating is 150 amps. Absolutely. We're able to use the allowances for the next size up. Okay. We're able to do that. It's still protecting these conductors. We're able to use the conductor size, the 83% rule. So some people say to me, well, Paul, how can you protect a conductor that's rated for 130 amps with a 150 amp overcurrent protected device? Because the code says we can. 240.4b says I can. The rules in 230 says I can. It's okay. Relax. It's done all the time. Okay. Now, when I get over 800 amps, things change a little bit. Okay. So keep that in mind. Right. So in our case, it would be 1 copper or 2-aught aluminum. That's what we'd be dealing with. Okay. Now, when it came to that neutral conductor, we won't go into this on this episode, but you remember you have to use the standard method, and I'll just show you one real quick way of doing this, okay? Kind of move through this pretty quickly for you because I know some of you out there are going to be taking the exam. But let me explain something to you in the real world. In the real world, if I size the neutral at no more than 2 sizes smaller than my ungrounded conductor, I'm probably going to be fine. If you want to size it full size, you're probably fine. Okay. I say probably, but I mean, it's how we do it when we do cable. So if I go buy an SE cable, service entrance cable, okay, and I'm sizing it to this, okay, when I buy that SE cable, then it's already going to have a neutral that is no more than 2 sizes smaller, right? So y'all are familiar with the SEU, the aluminum 4-aught, for example. That helical wrap that's around it, the flat one, that helical, when you bring all those strands together, it's equivalent to a 2-aught. So you have the 4-aught hots, and all those strands are equivalent to a 2-aught. That's the way it works. Okay. Did you know that? Some of you maybe didn't know that, but that's how that works. So you're allowed. Now, if you want to make life, if you're an engineer and you want to make life really simple, then guess what? If you want to make the neutral the same size as the ungrounded conductors and call it a day, you can do that if you want as well. Maybe you're saying, well, I'm doing aluminum. I'm already buying a bunch of this 1-aught anyway, and I can re-identify the conductors with the white tape. Then crap, I'll just buy the right amount of 1 gauge copper. Okay. I'm a frugal electrician. You might say, well, but for me, it's simple. I might just say, just give me, if it's 3 feet I need, just give me 10 feet of 1-aught. Boom. And I'm going to get my 2 hots and my neutral out of it. You get what I'm saying? Everybody's different, but I might do that because I just want to get 1 order of the 1 wire and done. Everybody's different. Okay. But with that said, I'll show you real quickly how we do the neutral calculation using the standard method. So all of these things you see that are highlighted are in play. Now, this wall-mounted oven, this counter-mounted cooking unit and this and the dryer are still in play as well for the neutral. I just don't have them highlighted because we're starting out with the things that are are 120 volt loads. And when we say that, it means that they have a neutral component. So that's important, okay? So remember what we did, the dwelling unit, 35 times 55. Remember 7 feet down 100, we get to remove. We had 4 small appliances, right? And we had the laundry, right? That's 2 of those. Okay, so the general lighting is 35 times 55 is 1925. We took that 70 away. That is 1855 again times 3 VA. That is 5,565. You remember, some things never change. Okay. Now remember in the 2026, that 3 VA goes to 2 VA. Woo. Okay. And you may say, why that? Yeah, because things are more efficient today. So it's taking that into account, more energy efficient stuff, the energy codes demanding Energy Star, more stuff. So again, that type of thing. Okay. Next, we had just 4 small appliances. That's 6,000. That didn't change. The 2 laundries, 3,000. That didn't change. So now, guess what? In the standard method, we're allowed to apply some demand factors. Well, guess what? When we're doing the neutral, we still apply those same demand factors, right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, we like to say. So that 14,565, we take the first 3,000 at 100%. Remember, we're doing the standard method now for the neutral. The first 3,000 at 100%, and the remaining 11,565 at 35%. Okay, so where did we get this 11,000? Well, we took the 14, took 3,000 and set it aside. That remaining 11,565, we took it 35%. And then we brought them back together. We took the 4,048, which is the 35% of this, and we added the 3,000 back into it. That was 7,048. So that's where we got our general lighting and general use loads, okay? Next is the appliances. Remember, this is just like we did for the standard method. The only difference here is that we're only looking at the loads that are right now that are 120 volts because they're the only ones at this point that have a neutral contribution that we need to worry about, okay? And so we have that dishwasher, that's a 120. We have this sink waste disposer, that's a 115. We don't worry about the water heater because that's a 240. We have the trash compactor, that's a goody good, that's 120. And we have those 3 attic fans, those are all 120. So remember, how we do the standard method is just like we're doing here. We take the dish, also, the only difference between the appliance calculation here and when we're doing the hot conductors is that we would calculate in as an appliance the water heater as well. Okay, so that's the only key difference. Okay, just so you know. All right, so we got 1,200 VA here, so that's 10 times 12. The in-sync waste disposal, we got the 9.8 amps from the table 430.248. Doesn't this look familiar? That is 9.8 amps times 115. That's 1127. That trash compactor, 7.5 times 120. That's 90. 3 attic fans, 12.6 amps times 120. That's 1,512. Add those 4 up. And remember, good news is, guess what? We get to apply the demand factors of 75%, just like we get to do when we're doing the standard calculation when sizing the hot conductors. We get to do the same thing for the neutral. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Does that saying even make sense anymore? All right, so 1,200, 1127, 900, and 1512 gives me 4,739. Don't trust me. Do the math. Plus 1512. That is 4,739, so that is right. Now remember, how many appliances do we have? Do we have 4 or more that's required by 220.53? Absolutely we do. We have 3 attic fans, a trash compactor, an in-sink weight, and a disposer. So it's 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Absolutely. Do we get to apply the 75% to this value? Absolutely. The same way we do it for the hots, sizing the ungrounded hot conductors for the service, we get to apply it also to the neutral. Keep life simple, right? So that 4,739 times 75% should be 3,554.25. Now, you don't have to drop this here. You can leave it and drop it at the end if you want, but we're going to drop it. So we're going to do, let's make sure that is right real quick, times 0.75. That is right, 3554.25. So we're gonna drop it and just use 3,554 VA. It's gonna get you in the ballpark. Also, for exams, by the way, if you're doing a calculation on an exam, you're doing a standard method or option or whatever, and your numbers don't come out exactly, but it's within a few off, 5 amps, 4 amps, 3 amps, it's within a few amps off, go with the closest one. Okay. If you're in there and you're starting to stress, you're starting to sweat beads are dropping down your face, right? And you're going, holy smoly, I should have gotten the right answer. Relax. At this point, you're going to have to take an educated guess because you could spend a lot of time trying to do a calculation. And what are you doing? That clock in the corner is doing this. You're probably close enough. Pick the best possible answer. Okay. Now, if you have a bunch of, and you can mark that question, because if you have a bunch of time left and you're sitting there and you're done and you're like, well, let me go back to this one, go back to it. Okay. But really manage your time well on an exam. In the field, you got plenty of time, but on an exam, manage your time wisely. You know what I'm saying? All right. Okay. So there we go. All right. So next thing we got to deal with. Okay. So that was that load. Set that aside. Now we got to deal with the clothes dryer, the counter-mounted cooking unit, and the wall-mounted oven. Okay. Now, there is this little rule, okay, that you get to follow in 220.61b that says, you know what? I can take an additional demand value from the actual appliance. In this case, okay, I can take a demand value from it. So let's see if I can take some type of demand. So the first one we'll do is the clothes dryer. I can take 70% of the actual clothes dryer and use that for my neutral. All right, so you take the full rating, that's 5.5, which is 5,500, right? And you multiply that by 70%. What does that give us? 5,500 times 70%. And you say, where does this rule come from? It's in 220.61b, by the way. Okay, so go look if you need to. So that is 3,850. So that is the value that we plug in for the neutral. So pop that in. The next is we're going to deal with that counter-mounted cooking unit, right? And we're going to deal with that wall-mounted oven. Now, remember in the standard method, and by the way, for those that say, hey, Paul, on that note, ranges confuse me. Cooking appliances confuse me. Do me a favor. Go to fasttrackstube.com, search up in the search for ranges. We have 2 great videos. One that talks about the branch circuit, and the other one talks about the service calculation for ranges. You definitely want to go watch that because I walk you through all of the scenarios. That way you walk away going, dude, I know how to do ranges now. All right. So in this case, we're gonna kind of make it easy for us. All right. And then we will go look up that because I will give you a little quickie lesson. All right. Now it says a 7 kW counter-mounted cooking unit, cooktop, and a 6 kW wall-mounted oven are included in this calculation. Both units fall within the parameters of column B, okay, of 220.55. That's where your cooking appliances fall. And so the demand factors percentage found in that column is for 2 units is 65%. Okay. So what does it tell me? It tells me down in the notes that I can add those 2 units together and treat them as one. Okay. So I add the 7 and the 6, and that gives me 13 kW. Okay. So the demand factor for those 2 units is 65%. Okay. To find the calculated load. And that is going to ultimately be 8.45 kW. Okay. Or 8,450 watts or 8,450 uh, uh, VA. Okay. Now, you still have to compare this to column C. Good news is you get to take whichever's the lesser of the two. Okay. So let's real quick go over to the code because I like to show you these things. Let's look at 220 and let's go down to 55 right here. Okay. So here's what we're talking about right here. Okay. Now, it'll remind you in here when we're looking at it, if you look right here, you can't see it, so I'll try to blow it up. Here's the table. Now, notice what it says at this table, real quickly. It says right here in parentheses, it says column C is to be used in all cases except as otherwise permitted in note 3. Okay? So I'm always going to compare column C, okay, since we have 2 appliances, a cooktop and we have a cooktop and we have a countermounted unit. I mean, cooktop and an in-wall oven, okay? So I'm going to be in the column 2, okay? So, but C, what is C? So let's go look and see what C is real quick. C is going to be, for 2 of them, it's going to be 11 kW. Okay. Now, none of these are over 12. Okay. So none of them are over 12. So I could just go with 11 if I wanted. But remember, I get to choose whichever yields the lesser value. Now, that is unique for ranges. Okay. And in cooking appliances. Okay. So now, how do I get to use B? Well, first of all, both of those cooking appliances fall within this range of 3.5 kW through 8.75 kW. So that's the first clue. Next, I want to go see what note 3 says. I want to go down here to note 3 and see what note 3 tells me. So here's note 3. All right, so note 3 says if it's over 1.75 through 8.75, okay, and R is R, then it says in lieu of the method in column C. So what does in lieu of mean, folks? In lieu of 3 means, okay, that I can forget about using column C. So in lieu of that, I can just go, well, if column B applies, then I can use column B. But if column C yields the better value, then I can go with C. I get to choose which. And this rule right here tells me in lieu of, instead of, is what I should say, going to column C, just turn around and go to column B because both of those appliances fall under column B, right? So then what does it say? All right, it says in lieu of that. And then it goes on to say, in lieu of that, it says just adding the nameplate ratings of all household cooking appliances rated more than 1.75 but not more than 8. And that's what we did. That's what we added the 2, the 7 and 6 together. Okay. And then it says, and multiplying the sum, which was the 13 kW, multiply the sum by the demand factor specified in column A or column B for that given number. Easy peasy. So we're going to go to column B. We got 2. We're going to go to column B. So we got 2 of them. They both fall under column B. So guess what? 65%. Now remember, A and B are demand factors and percentages. Column C is literally the demand. That's the kW value. So these column A and B are percentages. Don't lose track of that. You might want to highlight that if you can highlight in your book. That's the big difference, okay? Keep that in mind. So in our case, we lucked out, baby. We can do the 13, which is the 6 and the 7 added together, right? And let me blow this up a little. No, we're not going to blow it up. We'll just leave it right here. All right. And so we're going to take the 6 and the 7, that's 13. And we're going to take 13 and we're going to multiply that. Let's see here. Multiply that by 0.65. And that gives me 8.45 or 8,450 VA. Okay. Now, that is the value that we would have used in our service calc using the standard method, right? But what did the code say for the neutral? Under 220.61b, we now can take an additional demand. And that additional demand is what? That additional demand is going to let me apply that 70% to that. So I take that 8,450 and I multiply that by 70% or 0.70, whatever your flavor. So I take 8,450, multiply that by 0.70, and that gives me 5,915 VA. Guess what? That's our cooking contribution to the neutral. Pretty straightforward, right? All right. So lastly, all we now have to do is look for those other loads. Okay. And I'm not sure why this did this, so bear with me. I'm having all kinds of problems today. Okay, so let's try to blow this up a little bit more. I'm not sure what happened with that. Anyway, okay. So now what was remaining in our calculation? We had the 120 volt loads that had to do with what? The air conditioning. We didn't worry about the heat because the heat was 240. The air compressor, we don't worry about that because that's 240 or 230 in our case. So we got the air handler motor and we got the condensing fan motor, right? All right. So we're comparing the two. Now, we don't have a heat. So all we're doing is neutral loads. So we take all of the neutral loads that actually are going to be on. So whether heat's running, air conditioning's running, the heat's still using the air handler, right? When the air handlers run, the outdoor AC unit's running, we're not taking the compressor, but the air handler will be running. That condenser fan is, in this case, is a 115, so it'll be running. So it has a neutral contribution. So we have to add that to our neutral load. All right. So we take that so again, exercise. We don't use the air conditioning compressor, right? But we do take that condensing fan, which is 2 amps times 115. So we're using that 230. And that air handler, which is 3.2 amps times the 115, 368. So we add the 230 and the 368 together. And that is our VA contribution for the neutral loads that have to do with our heating and air conditioning. So you combine the two and just take all of the 120 volt neutral loads to try to find out what that contribution is. Okay. All right. Now, you might think you're done, right? And in most cases, most people that get this wrong in our exercises, they forget something. What they forget is you still have to apply the largest motor that's going to have a 120 contribution. Now, in the standard method, we automatically search for that largest motor and we add it, right? We still got to do the same thing for the neutral. I have to account for the largest motor that would have a neutral contribution. So I've got to hunt for that. And in our list, the in-sink waste disposer was the largest motor that was actually had a neutral contribution. Remember, that was a 0.5 horsepower motor. And I believe it was 9.8 or something like that amps. Okay. So that's our largest motor. So we got to capture that one last piece. And again, in the real world, if you leave off that 25% of the largest motor, probably not going to change your math too much. And in the field, it's not going to make a hill of beans probably in the real world. On an exam, it may make a difference. So just keep that in mind. So since that in-sink waste disposer was 9.8 amps times 115, that was 1,127. You see everything else is much less. Now remember, this 1,512, that's all three of the attic fans. So any one of them is only 4.2 amps. So you don't take all three of them. So the single motor, the largest one, is this in-sink waste disposer. So that's the one we use. But look, All we're trying to capture is that additional 25% for the largest motor in the dwelling. Okay, for the neutral. We already did that when we did the standard calculation, right? But we still got to do it again for the neutral because we got to use the standard method. Remember, we didn't do any of that garbage when we did the optional method. Okay, it was 100% versus 100%. We didn't even look for the largest motor. We just took everything in the nameplate, right? That's how they differ. And you have to get used to doing them both. So in this case, we take the 1,127 times 25% or 0.25, whatever your flavor. And that is 281.72. In our case, 0.7, we're going to round up. That's 282 amps. We're rounding up. In the scheme of life, how much amps does that bring? Well, you can see what it brings. If I take that 282 divided by 120, it's 2 amps. It's it. 2 amps from that perspective. From a 240 volt service perspective, it's 282 divided by well, no, we're just going to keep it that. That's the contribution. It's going to be to any one of the legs, right? Whatever this neutral is using as the hot leg. So really, it's not going to change a whole lot in the real world. Okay. So we've covered. So this was everything, right? So the neutral contribution now, there's our 7,048. We did our fixed in place appliances. Our neutral was 3,554. We used and that's because we used the demand factors. Okay. We had 6 of them, remember? Clothes dryer we got 3,850 because we took the 550 times 70%. The cooking appliances was 8,450. Remember how we did that? We applied the 70%. That's 5,915. The air handler motor and the compressor motor, that was 598. We just did that. And that largest motor was 282. Add this all up, 21,247. Divide that by 240. That is 89 amps. Okay. Or 88.52 or 89 amps. Due to that 0.5, we're rounding it up to 89 amps. Okay. So what do we need to handle 85 amps? Well, we need to have at least a 3 copper, okay, which can handle 89 amps. If we're doing aluminum, it's at least a 2 to handle the 89 amps, okay? Now, remember what I said earlier? In this scenario, we didn't have to worry about it because we didn't go more than 2 sizes smaller than the ungrounded conductor. So if we had a 200 let's say 150 amp service, okay? So let's kind of go look and see how this holds true. I'm just using a rule of thumb for you for the in the field. Let's go to the code really quick. And I want to just look at 310.12 again. And let's just see if we can play a little ruly here. So here's the 150 that we said we were going to have. Oops. 150. So it'd be a 1 copper, okay? So 1 copper. So in sizing, we're going to go now 1 copper to 310/16. And we'll go down under here, right? And so we have 1 copper, right? So typically we said what? It would be a 3 copper. So here's the 1. 2 sides, no more than 2 sizes smaller would be a 3, right? Okay. And it is good because we said it was THHN, THWN-2, and everything was rated as such. Then we have what? Good for 100 amps. So we're still good. We're good for that. And in the aluminum, let's just see how that goes. Here's the aluminum side. And we said it would be, I think it was, what was it? It was 2-aught aluminum, I think. Yeah. No, it was, what was it? Yeah, it was 2-aught aluminum, right? Oh, no. Maybe it was, 2-aught aluminum for 135, maybe. Oh, no, wait a minute. I think it was 3-aught. I can't remember. Damn it. I got to go back and look now. Hold on. Let me go back and look real quick because I can't remember what size we said. Maybe y'all remember. I don't remember. Oh, 2-aught aluminum. Okay. So it's 2-aught aluminum. So here's the 2-aught aluminum. So it'd be 135, right? And so 2 sizes smaller than that would be a minimum of a 1, right? So let's see if this holds true. Okay. A minimum of 1. And if we go back, a minimum of 1 if you buy the cable already assembled. So that's going to be a 1. Now, but what we said was, let's go back to the lesson. We said that it could be a 2 aluminum because it's good for 89 amps. And if you go look at the table, a 2 is good for 90. Okay. So if you're not buying a cable assembly, so that's why I'm telling you, if you buy the cable or you follow the principles in the cable assembly sizing, then it's typically going to be, you don't have to do anything. It's already factored in for you for the most part. Now, I showed you how to do it, so you can do it. But usually this is pretty much, if, as long as you don't go more than 2 sizes smaller, then it typically takes care of itself, okay? But I'd rather you understand how to do the calculation so you know how to do it, okay? So it makes sense. Let's see, let's go to the chat, see if we got any questions. Well, let's see here. Let's see here. Do we got anybody in the chat? Nope, nobody's got any questions on anything. Okay, hey, I'm shocked. We still have 24 people here. I haven't bored you out today. So let's spin the wheel and get some people on the giveaways. Hashtag win. Make sure you get in on the spin. All right, I'm gonna spin the wheel. Remember, you want one of these thermal cameras, you can get 50% off the thermal course. That's like a $300 savings. Certified course. All right, let's see. Mike from Outdoors. I think that's Alex. And you're in for the slate coaster drawing. Good job. Congratulations. Let's spin again. Go, whammy. Let's go. All right, trade hard. Is that Adam? Is that you, Adam? All right, trade hog drawing. All right, let's spin again. All right, let's see what we got. Ben, you're in the drawing for the slate coasters. They're all very limited, those, so. By the way, folks, we still have engraved products, our engraved wallets, our engraved cards. All those goodies are over on our website. Check it out. Or look in our store. We appreciate all your patronage. Speaking of minimalist wallet, just so y'all know, I do carry mine. Look how many I got in that sucker. That's my minimalist wallet. I carry this Code Strong version. Okay. I don't have my name on it. I just do my Code Strong, that type of thing. So anyway, I practice what I preach. All right. All right, Jonathan, I think this is you, Tennessee electrician. And you are in the drawing for a minimalist. And we had those Buzz Watts versions as well for those that are interested. And a new episode of Buzz Watt Adventures is coming out this week. I've been a little slack on that. So we got a new episode. We're still left on a cliffhanger. We don't know what happened to Buzz. We don't know if he's okay, if Ampy's okay. I left you all in a cliffhanger. All right, let's draw one more. Bill. Bill Buds got a hat clip. Y'all seen my hat clips right here? Here you go. There you go. There it is. I like to put QR codes on there, and it goes to all of my websites and everything. When I'm at a show or something, I'll tell people to, where is it? Right here. Scan my QR code, and then they can put it on their, save it to their phone. You can have your QR code put with whatever address you want. If you win, or you can get them, we have assortment of colors. That type of thing. So check it out. All right, folks, that is it for today. Hopefully you got something out of it. This thing right here is going to be blowing up because you can really add it to your business. You can do it as a standalone. You can try to get contracts for maintenance. I have a couple blogs out. I encourage you to go read those blogs on why data centers need to have a program. We're also going to have a program that's available for new stuff where you put on what's called black body tags, and I'll explain those type of things. But at the end of the day, it allows you to take easier readings, develop a system, monitor it, maintain it. Uh, we even show you how to check connections in a residential, where you think, wait a minute, don't I have to load at least 40% to be able to check any circuit? Absolutely. And we're going to show you how to do certain things to do an evaluation in a home, all those type of things. So anyway, how to find problematic issues, all this kind of stuff. If you're interested in it, check it out. All right. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. We'll catch you on the next episode of Coffee Hour next week. Until then, take care. God bless. Hope you got something out of today's show. A little longer than normal. But you know what? I can't get enough of Coffee Hour. So catch you on the next one. Peace.